about, people being angry over one vote. And, I don't think that's just the straw. For the last 6 years, we've heard nothing but falsehoods from all kinds of people. And, the Democrats seem to have a plan to destroy the representative government that we seem to have. And the opposing party is supposed to argue with that, and they're not. So underneath their voice, or underneath their breath, they must be saying, man, that sounds like a really good deal. Let's support that. And that's all Boehner's doing, is he's just a rhino.
Okay.
And Labrador is one, too, apparently, because nobody's listening to what the people wanted. So we don't have a representative form of government.
Travis, mark the day and time. This is the first time, and I think this is the first time on the program I've ever heard anybody call Labrador a rhino. Mark the day and time. Today.
He behaved like one today.
Okay. I appreciate the call.
What happened while you were at work? Find out here. Back to Nate Shellman on News Talk 670 KBOI.
Just wondering why we haven't gotten the press release yet, and then I hear Congressman Ronald Labrador is going to call into the show, which is great because I can talk back to a press release. I can talk back to the congressman. I can't do that to a press release. Congressman Labrador, thank you for joining us.
Hey, my pleasure. How are you doing, Nate?
I'm doing fine. I got to tell you, I haven't gotten any hate emails directed at me. You've apparently turned your back on your constituents. You've turned your back on the Tea Party. You're a sellout. You're a shill. And that's just the stuff I can say on air.
Well, I have better stuff than that, but I also can't say it on air.
Okay.
And they're all directed. I mean, they're being pretty vicious. But the first thing you need to understand is that you can't look at one vote. You have to look at 4 years of a record. There's nobody in Washington, D.C. who has fought this speaker more than I have. In fact, I was the leader of the coup the last time. I don't know if you remember that, Nate.
No,
but
we brought it up a few times.
Absolutely.
That was passed.
That we tried to get rid of him 2 years ago. We had the numbers to get rid of him, and at the last minute, a bunch of people turned their backs, and they voted for him. And that's when we had the numbers. This year is totally different. They never had the numbers to get rid of the speaker. There weren't sufficient people to vote the speaker out. So it's, in my opinion, and I know my constituents don't share it, and I understand their frustration. I am equally frustrated with this speaker, and that's why I have opposed him so many times. I even tried to oust him. In fact, I even ran for majority leader. Remember when the Idaho media made fun of me for trying to run for majority leader? Because there was nobody else who was willing to stand up against the person who was running for majority leader. I have stood up for conservative principles again and again and again. But guess what? This November, no one voted. No one ran for Speaker of the House. No one ran for Speaker of the House. That's when we had an opportunity to take him down. That's when we should have done it. And now at the last minute, a bunch of people decided that they wanted us to oust the Speaker. Why didn't they call us in November? Why didn't they do it back then? This is, I understand the frustration, but you can't come to Washington, D.C., try to make changes like I have tried to make for the last 4 years, do all the battles that I do, and if you're going to try to take the king down, you have to cut off his head. We tried it 2 years ago, and we had the votes, and we lost. And this time they didn't even have the votes. I was not going to do that 2 years in a row. But you know what, Nate? I totally understand why people are frustrated with me.
No, and I like your choice of words. You know, and it's been said before in other facets of politics that if you're going to challenge a king, you better take him down.
Yeah.
So is this somebody would hear that you voting for John Boehner today and say, well, Labrador's playing the game. 2 years ago, what happened? What happened after you voted present instead of voting for John Boehner 2 years ago? What were the consequences?
You know, I don't get support from special interest groups, which I don't care about. I don't get support from lobbyists. I'm not the favorite person. I'm never going to be a chairman of a committee. I'm never going to get an A committee. That's the price you pay when you decide to stand on principle. But there's a difference between standing on principle and doing something that is utterly stupid that has no chance of having any victory. You know, if you're going to die on a hill, you better make it a hill worth dying on. And this hill today was not worth dying on because there weren't the votes there to take the speaker down.
Congressman
and that's what the audience needs to understand. They were not sufficient people. We have a bigger majority in the House, and most of the new people were voting. In fact, all of the new people, except for one, were voting for the Speaker of the House. So we needed more people voting against the Speaker today than we needed 2 years ago, and it was going to be more difficult to take him down. You know, I have done a lot of things in my political career that have been, according to the establishment, career enders. As you know, I took on the governor of Idaho several times. I even endorsed against the governor of Idaho in a primary. So for anyone to say that I have turned my back on the conservative movement, that I have turned my back on the Tea Party, that I have turned my back on my constituents, then that means that in their mind they have very superficial support of what I have done over the last 4 years. Because there is no one that has fought harder for the people of Idaho, for the conservative movement in Idaho, and frankly, I would dare say in the United States, than I have.